Hey everyone, Haley Jensen here from Dog Pro Secrets, and I want to welcome you to the introduction to the masterclass. Today's presentation is going to be pretty brief. I'm thinking we're probably going to be right around 20 minutes. There's not a whole lot to cover, but this is really, really important stuff. This is going to kind of give you a general idea of what the masterclass is all about, of what it's going to accomplish for you and for your dog, and what makes it so powerful. So anyway, I'm really excited. I'm excited to introduce this to you and kind of let you know what it's all about. So I just want to start off kind of getting a feel for what a lot of people have been experiencing when they come to me, when they come to my training programs. There are a lot of people just experiencing a lot of frustration, high levels of frustration. I've been told time and time again, I've tried this, I've tried so many things, we've been to the classes, and we're still having problems, we're just not getting it. And I've kind of mulled over these problems quite a bit over my years of training, and just trying to step back and observe and just try to figure out what is it that most people are getting wrong? What is it that is causing all this frustration? Why do most new dog owners or puppy owners experience these high level of frustrations, and they don't achieve the expectations that they're having when they get a dog or when they get a puppy, and even when they're putting forth good effort and they're taking the classes and they're reading the books and whatever else. And I've kind of really nailed down, I've had a couple of big aha moments in my training career. I've really kind of nailed down a couple of things that I think are being overlooked by most people, and they make a huge difference in how this whole process all comes down. So I just want you to know there's a reason for that. There's a reason you're feeling frustrated. There's a reason it's not working. Excuse me, I have a cold. I'm going to forgive me for that. But anyway, and you're not alone. Most people are experiencing what you're experiencing. And that's how I came up with the masterclass. That's how I came up with this approach. And it's been working very, very well, and I'm really excited for it. So basically, there's universal mistakes that practically everybody makes. So many people make these mistakes, and they can become the pitfall to your success, and hardly anybody talks about them. And these are some of the core things that I want to hit on in this class. So quickly, I just want you to grab a pen and a notebook if you don't have one. Turn off whatever notifications you've got, if you've got Skype going or whatever. I don't want you multitasking right now. I just want you to focus for a minute, because this is going to set the tone for the whole course. I want you to jot a couple things down. First of all, this is a brief introduction to who I am. For those of you who are not familiar with who I am, some of you might know who I am. My name is Haley Jensen. I own Dog Pro Secrets and Puppy Sex Training, and I've been training dogs and puppies for years. And I eat, drink, live puppy training. I'm constantly studying. I'm constantly trying and learning new things. I'm implementing new things into my training system. I'm constantly, keeping up on the latest as far as techniques and methods and approaches. And I've worked with several other trainers, tried lots of different approaches, tried things that worked great, tried things that failed miserably. I've learned a lot. And it's not like I'm just taking in knowledge. I'm applying it with the puppies. And so we're trying these things out with the dogs, and we're seeing what does work and what doesn't work. And so I've put in the time and the effort and a lot of personal investment into learning these things. And I just kind of want to take this course and shortcut you straight to success, so you can avoid all the pitfalls and the mistakes that I have personally made and professionally made. And just get you past all that, so you don't have to go through the pain of making all those mistakes that I've made. That I can just shoot you straight to success. And this is a question that's gonna come into play a little bit later, and I just want you to think about this for a minute. And this might be something that you want to take a minute and jot down in your notebook. Why do you want a dog? What experience in your mind did you want to achieve with bringing a dog or a puppy into your life? What did you want your family to experience? What did you want your children, maybe your grandchildren, to experience? Or maybe just you personally? What were your personal reasons, your emotional reasons, for bringing this dog into your life? And I just want you to think about that, and we're going to go through these kind of principles quickly, and then at the end we're going to touch on that. But I think this is really important. This is kind of the underlying reason of why you enrolled in this class, It's why you're here. It's why you're spending time with me right now. So it's an important thing, and I want you to just take some time to think and reflect on that as we go through this. So just this is kind of what we all want. This is what we all envision when we bring a dog into our life. We think we're going to do it right. We're going to we're going to train them. I got the right kind of dog. I've got the right situation, whatever, and it's going to be great. And this is what the mental image that we all have, right? This is what we usually get, is a reality check within the first couple weeks, if not the first couple days. They're destroying the house. They're peeing, pooping on everything. And this is what most dog owners feel like. This is what most people experience when they bring a dog into their life. There's aggression problems. There's all kinds of things going on that you did not expect to happen. And it's interfering with your neighbors. It's interfering with your family. It's interfering with your home. It's causing some serious problems. And now you have a moral obligation to take care of this dog, and you've got to figure it out. And that can be a big deal. That can be really frustrating, right? The reality is that if you do not take the correct approach to dog training, you can and probably will have some serious problems. It's really going to throw a kink into your life. Maybe you've experienced this with past dogs. Maybe you have a dog right now that's going okay. But I think everybody can kind of relate to this on some level. Just to give you an example, one of our dogs, we got him as a puppy, and when we first got him, we didn't realize we were supposed to socialize him to loud noises. And so we didn't socialize him correctly. And anyway, we trained him in obedience. We trained him in a lot of different things, and he was a great dog. He didn't cause a whole lot of problems. He did everything very well. But he was terrified by thunderstorms. He was terrified by gunfire. And one time we went out of town for a couple of days, and he was home, being just kind of taken care of by the neighbors, and there was either a thunderstorm came through or there was some gunfire, and he was at home outside of the house for I don't know how long, but he flew into a complete panic, and he destroyed every door on our house trying to get in. The back door, he tweaked it so that we couldn't shut the door all the way. The garage door, he completely tore it apart. He tore through the metal and through the insulation on that door trying to get inside. And our front door, he completely tore the trim off the bottom of the door. Anyway, it was thousands of dollars of damage. And not only that, but this poor dog he was living in terror for who knows how long. I don't know if it was a half hour. I don't know if it was a couple of hours. It was enough time, excuse me, it was obviously enough time for him to go around and do some serious damage. But it's experiences like this that make me want to just take a little bit of time to do it right the first time. And if we don't do it right, these are the kind of things that you can run into. The expenses can be very, very high, and the trauma to your dog can be extensive. It can be serious, and that's a sad deal for everybody. The good news is that if you do take the right approach, you can make this process very easy, and you can have that experience that you're looking for with your dog. So here's what makes it work. There's basically 4 keys. Key number 1, you can't dabble. We'll go into these in detail in just a minute. Like I said, it's going to be pretty brief today. I don't have tons of material for you, but number 1, you can't dabble. Number 2, good dog owners and handlers, they read, stabilize, then shape behavior. I'm going to go into that in detail, but most everybody talks about shaping behavior. They teach you how to teach your dog to sit. They teach you how to teach your dog to heel. All these things, but what they don't realize is that good owners and handlers are always reading and stabilizing their dog first before they ever shape their dog's behavior. And those are critical components that nobody ever talks about. We're going to go into depth into both of these things in the masterclass. The third key is there's a huge difference between teaching and training. I'll get into that in a minute. And the fourth key is filling in the gaps. Let's just dive right into you can't dabble. I want you to think of a puppy like wet concrete. He's soft, he's easy to shape, easy to manipulate while he's young. You have this golden opportunity, these first couple months of his life, to pretty much make him whatever you want. But once he's hit a certain age, he's kind of set in his ways. And changing things becomes very difficult. It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of discipline and a lot of effort on your part to make a change. And you can change and you can rehabilitate dogs, but it is so much easier when they're puppies. You really have this wonderful little opportunity to make them whatever you want them in the first couple months of their lives, and it is so simple and so easy and will last for the rest of their life. In fact, one of the worst things you can do to a puppy is nothing. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about dogs and dog training and bringing a dog into their life, is they think if they don't beat it, if they don't abuse it, if they don't mistreat it, if they just love on it and it's a happy dog, then everything's going to be great. But not placing expectations on your dog, not giving him a job, not giving him an obedience routine and a way to please you, kind of leaves him with a whole bunch of insecurities and boredom and lots of opportunity to destroy your home and wreck your life, basically. So one of the worst things you can do for a puppy is nothing. Like that example with my dog that tore apart the doors, that had that panic attack. I didn't actively do anything wrong with that dog. The only thing that was wrong about that situation is I did nothing with, as far as socializing him to loud noises. I did nothing. And that resulted in a behavior problem that was destructive to him and our home. This is a little, oh, it's really pixelated. I wonder why that's so fuzzy. Anyway, apologize for that. This is a little chart I like to show people to give you an idea of what you can expect with a dog or a puppy. This is the time and effort that it takes to get long-term obedience. And the reason I really like to point this out is if you can just put in the investment this first little while, to start off with, it is a lot of work. Okay, I'm not gonna I don't know the term I'm looking for. Anyway, let's be realistic about this. When you first bring a puppy home, a new puppy, it is a lot of work. You have to take them out for potty breaks a lot. They cry and they whine a lot. They're under your feet a lot. They're very needy. They're just like babies. And babies are very demanding and very needy. And most people, they start out okay and they put in the time and the effort, but it is so much work that right about this time right here, most people kind of peter out. And they just decide it's just too much work, it's too much effort, and they either rehome the dog or they just kind of give up on training. And if you give up at this point, then it plateaus out, and it's always a lot of work. And the dog gets big, and he gets naughty, and he's jumping up, and he's knocking down your kids, and maybe he comes into hormones and gets some aggression problems. And then at some point you have to rehome the dog. But if you just keep this visual in mind, if you can just stick with it for that first year, just stick it out and hold to your obedience routine and hold to your expectations, then they kind of hit this magical switch when everything that they've learned becomes automatic behaviors. It becomes muscle memory. It gets to the point that they don't even have to think about it anymore. And that is the time that you can transition out of using food for treats on a regular basis. That's the time that you can really just tell them what to do, and they're going to do it the right way every time, because it's just what we do. You've burned it into their psyche, and that is so worth it. That is such a huge investment long term, because this chart is even condensed. It starts out in weeks and months, and then it stretches out into years. So if this was accurate, this chart would be like off the picture. That investment of time, those first couple months, that first year, will pay dividends to you for years and years and years, and it will give you that experience. So just make sure you put in that initial time and effort, and keep the faith that it is going to get easier. It's not going to constantly be this hard during that puppy phase. The training technique that we utilize in the masterclass is so simple. It's nothing magic. What makes it work is you can't dabble. Daily obedience routine is a basic need for a dog or a puppy. It's right up there with food, water, shelter, interaction, exercise, everything else. He's got to have a daily obedience routine. I'll say that one more time. Daily obedience routine is a basic need for a dog or a puppy. And there's so many reasons for that I'm not going to get into here, but just understand that he is a domesticated species, which means he looks to you to be his leader. He looks to you to tell him what to do. He needs you to be telling him what to do on a regular basis. He needs that discipline. He needs that routine. That's going to give him a whole lot of security. That's going to give him a sense of pride and a sense of fulfillment in his own abilities and a bond with you. He's going to look to you as the leader. He's going to, anyway, there's a lot of reasons for that. But this is one of the big things that most people miss, is we kind of become hit and miss with training. We do it here and we do it there, and then when it becomes a problem, then we really stick with it for a couple months and try to correct the problem, and then we kind of let it go, or one person in the family will stick with it and somebody else won't, and then the dog gets confused or he'll only listen to one person. Daily obedience routine is a basic need for a dog or a puppy. The power of expecting her to do stuff. It gives her a job, which she really needs. She needs a purpose. Everybody needs a purpose, and the same thing is with dogs. Dogs need a purpose in the home. And even if her purpose is nothing more than knowing when she's allowed to go in and out of the house, knowing when she's and where she's allowed to go potty, knowing where her bed is, knowing how to go there when she's told to, knowing how to sit, knowing how to stay, knowing how to lie down, knowing how to be polite and use her manners, knowing a couple tricks, even if that's her job. That gives her a job and that gives her a purpose. The other thing it does is it builds a bond with you, and I've already touched on that, so I'm not going to go into more detail. And it prevents so many behavior problems. Just that daily obedience routine prevents stuff like separation anxiety. It prevents stuff like destruction, like barking problems, house training problems, things that you would never think are related to just asking your dog to sit and stay and down on a regular basis. You would not think they're related. But having that daily obedience routine and using those commands on a regular basis prevents so many behavior problems. Okay, so that's the first key. You can't babble. Daily obedience routine is a basic need for a dog. The second key is, is that good owners and handlers read, stabilize, then shape behavior. Let me give you a quick example of one time in 1 week I had 2 different people call me about 2 different dogs that I had trained for them, and I was familiar with those dogs and their personalities, and they had 2 different problems. Anyway, because I knew those dogs' personalities, one was very shy, very timid, a very soft-hearted personality. The other dog was a very boisterous, bouncy, kind of assertive, dominant type of a personality. Completely different. Because I knew that and I had been able to read that in those dogs, I gave those 2 owners completely different strategies for addressing their behavior problems. And the reason I give you that example is you can't go to a book and say, how do I get my dog to stop peeing in the house? And it'll give you a single answer, and that answer is going to work for every dog. That does not work. I can't stress how important it is for you to know your dog personally and as an individual and be able to read her in any given moment and respond appropriately. That's going to make all of the difference. You've got to be able to read your dog. And that's the thing is people who have a lot of experience with dogs, great dog trainers and great dog owners and handlers, they are constantly reading and stabilizing their dog before they ever ask them to do anything. But most people aren't aware of it. They don't realize that they're doing that. It's just kind of second nature. It comes with experience. And so they don't talk about it. So when you ask them, how do you address that problem? They usually just talk about the mechanical skills, the shaping part of how they address the problem. We did XYZ, that's what we did. But they don't talk about, we did XYZ because this dog is, this kind of a temperament or this kind of a personality. They don't talk about the fact that they are reading their dog and they're stabilizing their dog. And stabilizing is so critical because if a dog is not in a stable state of mind, they're not going to learn anything. Whether they're stressed out or they're feeling just really aggressive and chaotic, either of those situations, they are not going to learn anything. So before you can do any kind of shaping, before you can do any kind of training with your dog, you've got to get him stabilized. And so we're going to go through the masterclass goes through a whole lesson just on reading and a lesson just on stabilizing. And we're also going to talk about shaping behavior too. But these are two critical components that we cover in this class that I don't see hardly talked about anywhere else. And I think it's going to make a huge difference with you and your dog. Dr. Secret's Masterclass teaches, yeah, I already talked about that. And it is quite a bit easier than you think. It's a very simple thing. It's just something that we don't think about a lot, so we don't talk about it. The third key, there is a huge difference between teaching and training. Okay, so the conscious brain can only hold so much stuff. I want you to go back in your mind, if you're an adult, you've had this experience, and think about the very first time you drove on the freeway, or maybe the first time you drove in a big city that you'd never driven in before, and how intimidating that probably was, and how scary that was, because there was so much for your conscious mind to be thinking about, because you're not used to driving. So you got to be thinking about, your signaling, you got to be thinking about your merging, you got to be thinking about who's in front of you, behind you, where you're going, what street you're on, if it's a one-way, all these things that are on your mind, and it can be a pretty overwhelming experience. Do you know what I'm talking about? So your conscious brain can only hold so much stuff. Now I want you to fast forward to when you've been driving for several years and you've done it so much that driving has just become a part of your nature. It's part of your muscle memory. You can drive without even thinking about it because your feet and your hands and your eyes just know what to do because you've done it so much. So you've trained yourself to drive. So there's a big difference between teaching and training. I'm going to show you how this is important to the masterclass here in a second. So the first time you drove, like in a new city or on the freeway, you had been taught how to drive, right? You'd been to driver's ed. You know how to signal, you know how to merge, you know all the mechanics of that. You've been taught that, but you have not been trained how to drive yet. It's not part of your muscle memory. And so all of that is still on your conscious brain, and you just have to think about it, and it's just a lot. So the same thing applies with dog training. When you're working with a dog, most of us are so unfamiliar with dog behavior and the dog's perspective and how to respond appropriately to a dog that we just are kind of like our first time driving on the freeway. We're thinking about the dog next to us. We're thinking about whether we should be sitting or standing. We're thinking about the commands. We're thinking about the hand signals. We're trying to remember stabilizing. We're trying to remember all this stuff, and it can be a lot. And a lot of people, a lot of times we just go through classes or books or whatever, and we're taught how to train our dogs, but that is just a lot to have on our brains. So what this class does is it trains you how to respond appropriately to your dog. One time I was out walking the dogs, and I was coming back, and I was just thinking about how can I train people to respond appropriately to their dogs? How can I literally train them to do it instead of just teaching? Because I started to realize that there was a big gap between teaching and training. I would tell people how to do it, and they would say, yeah, okay, I got it. And then they wouldn't do it. And I would realize they didn't really have it. They needed to be trained how to do it. And I was walking home, and I was thinking about this a lot, and I was thinking, man, how can I do that? And all of a sudden I just kind of came on this idea. And when you come on an idea that really impacts you, you remember where you were and what you were doing. That's kind of what it was for me. I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly what I was doing. I realized that there was a way that I could literally take years of experience and condense it down into minutes and do it very, very easily. And I called these speed training sets. And I came home and I put this program together. And what I've done is I've collected hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of dogs doing different things. So I have lots of images. And through this course, we're going to run through these images together. And you're going to respond along with me in the appropriate way. And we're going to do it very, very, very quickly so that, we'll build it up over time. But what it does is it pushes these responses into your automatic behaviors. It pushes them into your muscle memory so that you don't have to think about it anymore. And these are called speed training sets, and they work very, very well. We've gotten tons of responses on those, and they're working really well. And what I kind of like to relate it to is they're kind of like a flight simulator. I used to work in aviation, and the pilots were required to spend a certain amount of time in a flight simulator, which is basically a box that looks and feels like a cabin, and it has all the buttons and the levers and everything else. And without all the risk and the time and the fuel to actually go up into the air and do these maneuvers, they would spend hours and hours and hours running through the drills, getting the muscle memory of the flying down in the flight simulator without having to actually be up in the air. They were pushing these behaviors, they were pushing these skills and abilities into their muscle memory, into their subconscious. They were training their bodies, training their hands, training their minds, their eyes, everything else. And that's kind of what speed training sets are going to do for you. They're going to train you to respond very quickly and correctly to your dog without even having to think about it. And that is a powerful, powerful tool. It's really, really cool. So that's the third key. The fourth thing is filling in the gaps, and how the master class is going to do this for you. Excuse me. So another one of the big aha moments that I had is I realized that most training modalities have their pros and their cons. For example, a class, and I've been through all these. I've been through the classes. So a class, one of the nice things about it is you get to interact with other people, which I think helps a lot. It's very easy to consume. So you go for an hour, you learn one thing, you take it home, you implement it. It's just one thing at a time. You don't get overloaded with lots of stuff. So it's very easy to consume, and you can just kind of focus on that for a week before you move on to something else. One of the other pros about a class is the accountability. You know that if somebody's counting on you to show up and your dog having learned something new, then you're more likely to follow through with it, right? So it keeps you kind of accountable, keeps you on your toes. One of the cons about a classroom setting is you get very little feedback or individual help from the trainer. And it's because, just like it shows here, you've got one professional trainer who's trying to help 12 people, 10, 12 people try something new with their dog. So they can spend a second helping you fix your thing, and then they got to help Joe over here, and then they got to help Linda over here. So you get very little interaction with them. And sometimes, time is up, sorry, we'll see you next week, and you never really got your questions answered. Another one of the cons is a lot of times you're very self-conscious in a group setting. I see this a lot, is a dog owner is so self-conscious about how they're doing that they are so focused on themselves that they can't focus on their dog. And being able to focus on your dog is really important to be able to train correctly. So that's one of the drawbacks to a classroom setting. Probably the biggest one for me is so much gets left unsaid. There is so much valuable information that you need to know to be able to implement this stuff in a practical way in your life long term, that there's just not time to say in a class. There's just no way. They've got to cover the mechanical skill, they've got to help everybody figure it out, try maybe one or two or other things, and then that's it. The hour's done, everybody goes home. There's so much that gets left unsaid that you really need to know. It's really important information. And then another thing with a class is you risk scheduling conflicts. If something pops up, if you get sick or whatever, you just miss the class and you're just out. So another training modality is books, and I really like books. I read a lot of books. One of the things I love about books is by the time you get done with a book, you get the whole story. You get it. You get all the depth. You get all the details. And it kind of sells you on doing it right. You're kind of committed, like, okay, I'm sold. I got it. I'm committed to doing this right because I thoroughly understand what it's all about. That's the beauty of a book. One of the cons is there's no feedback or interaction with the trainer, obviously, and it can be very overwhelming. It covers everything at once. So to implement it requires a lot of self-discipline. You have to kind of set your own schedule. You have to take one bite at a time, work on one thing at a time, keep your own journal. It takes quite a bit of self-discipline to implement training from a book. Another con is you have to have time to sit down and read a book, which some of us do, some of us don't. Private training, that's another one. I've done that too. One of the pros is you get, obviously, quite a bit more personal attention. You get to interact with the trainer. One of the cons is it's still not as in-depth as a book. You still work on some mechanical things, but you just don't get that depth and that detail. Another thing is that there's little interaction with others, which I think it's really helpful to learn from others. You get some different perspectives and things that you didn't think about. And it can easily be $80 an hour, very expensive. The master class combines the best of each. And this is one of the most beautiful things about the way we've set this up. You get the depth and the detail. Each of these lectures or classes or courses gives you the depth and the detail and kind of sells you on the idea of doing it right, so you're committed. You get the interaction with the trainer. You don't run into that, okay, well, our hour's up. We'll see you next week, everybody. You can take your time, and if you have questions, you can email me, and me personally and my training team, my other trainers, will help respond to your questions, and we'll put those on the class board so other people can see and learn from, you can learn from each other. So you get the accountability, you get the interaction with one another, and you don't run into the scheduling conflicts and all these different things. It really kind of fills in the gaps, and it combines the best of each of these training modalities. And that's one of the beauties of the way this is set up that I think is really, really cool. So that kind of wraps it up into the 4 keys. The first thing, you can't dabble. You've got to commit, okay? Daily obedience routine, just a simple routine. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be anything. Daily obedience routine is a basic need for a dog. Number 2, good owners and handlers read, stabilize, then shape behavior. And in this course, we're going to learn how to read your dog and how to stabilize your dog, and to do that very, very well without thinking about it, so that you're taking the right approach when you do shape your dog's behavior and when you do train and do those little mechanical things. The third key is there is a huge difference between teaching and training. This course will literally train you. It's like the flight simulator. It will train your muscle memory and your subconscious into doing it right, so that your conscious brain can be freed up for everything else your puppy's going to throw at you. And he will throw plenty at you, believe me. Anyway, the fourth key is filling in the gaps, just by the way it's set up, by the approach, by having it online, doing it at home, having access to a trainer, fills in all those little gaps, and it's going to just give you the best opportunity to be successful, a lot better than anything I found out there, and that's why I'm really excited about it. So just quickly, I'm not going to give you a ton of testimonials, but I just want to introduce you to real people. This is Richard from California. He came to me, really wanted a dog. His wife really did not want a dog. He just said, "What do I do? Can you help me out?" And that was kind of a tall order, but this is how it turned out. Lucky has been such a joy. Thank you so much. I just want you to believe in the system. I want you to believe in yourself, believe in your own abilities to do it and to do it right, and it does work. So now I just want to wrap this up and just come back to this question. Why do you want a dog? What did you want to achieve or experience by bringing this dog or this puppy into your life? And is that happening for you? A kind of a sobering thought. I want you to think about, how many dog experiences do you have left? I'm 30-something, and anyway, I can't tell you how often I've come across a new breed that I've trained, and I think it's like the neatest dog ever, and I think I'm going to own one of these one day. I just got to have one of these one day. And I'm perpetually thinking that, but one day I realized that dogs live about 15 years. I don't know that I want to be running around with a dog in my 90s. Maybe I will, I don't know. But I have maybe 2 or 3 dog experiences left in my life. That's it. I have 2, maybe 3 dog experiences left in my life. That's it. How many do you have left? Do you have 2 or 3? Maybe do you even have less? It's kind of a sobering thought. I want to ask you, will you commit to yourself, to your family, to your puppy or to your dog to do it right, to not dabble, to train yourself along with your dog, and just put in the investment and the time to do it right? This course has, I think, between 9 and 10 hours of content total. That's it, 9 and 10 hours, and it's spaced out over 6 weeks. But how many of you have worked 9 or 10 hours in a single day? Absolutely, I have. And I'm not trying to sell you on anything here. You've already purchased the course. You're here with me. But I just want what's more important to me, I want you to commit for yourself, for your family, for your dog, to follow through with this. It's so powerful, and I think it's going to make a huge difference in giving you that experience that you're looking for, and it's so worth it. This class will leave you with an entirely new perspective on dogs and dog training. So that's pretty much the introduction to the master class. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, go ahead and send me an email. And anyway, that's it. I'll see you in the members area, and thanks for being with me.